spooks and demons.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Thriving in Chaos. I am your host, Rebel Phoenix, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Stella Rune.
Hi. How are you?
Hello. Hello. How you doing?
I'm good. Apparently, I have a little frog in my throat. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I have that effect on people. You can't help that you get all choked up.
Get a little choked up when you're around me. It's fine.
Hey, it's just my sparkling personality shining through.
It is.
And
It is for sure.
speaking of sparkling personalities, let me tell you about the guest we got today.
I'm so excited.
After talking to her in the green room, I think she's as crazy as we are, so she'll fit right in with the rest of us around here.
Well,
And she is our show's first parapsychologist.
very
So
excited.
let's bring her on so she can explain what that is. Without further ado, I present Miss Christina Spencer.
Yay!
Hi.
Yeah, woo, yeah, woo.
The first thing, that intro, that's a banger. I was jamming in the green room.
Oh, the song's so good.
It's
The
so
song
good.
is so good.
Anyway, what a parapsychologist is basically a person that studies anything in the realm of the not normal. And I guess that's the best way to put it. A parapsychologist can study anything from near-death experiences, the afterlife, the paranormal, cryptozoology, ufology, anything where science stops and the realm of magic, I guess, begins. Because to me, magic is just the stuff we haven't connected with science to understand yet. It's a
I was
thin
just
line.
gonna say the same thing. Like it's science we don't know about yet.
Exactly.
You see
So
that? Great minds think alike.
parapsychologists, so parapsychologists, they study that stuff. My specific area of study, um, I fall more into the paranormal cryptozoology realm. I'm not a cryptozoologist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do like me some Mothman. I saw that in your intro. I've covered videos on the Mothman and a couple other cryptids, but I basically what started me like with the podcast and the channel, the YouTube channel, was because of, we discussed it in the green room, the ADHD. I'm obsessed with these things. So if anybody's got ADHD, you hyper focus. You see a topic, it grabs your attention, and you research it into the rabbit hole that it came from until you can't research it anymore. And then I would find myself info dumping on everybody. I'm like, you'll never guess. I found this place. It's called the Tombstone House, and it's made out of actual tombstones. You want to hear all about it? That's
Yeah,
what.
actually, I do.
You can info dump here anytime you want.
So then what I would do
Hi,
is
we all have ADHD here.
so instead of just
Clearly, I get distracted easily by shiny objects.
right, crystal shiny.
Oh, I have so many of those in my room right now.
Well, you can look. Like, this is my chaos area. There's haunted dolls. There's my
I see it's
skellies.
thriving.
Huh?
It's thriving.
Yeah. Well, and I have some stuff that's like heirlooms and stuff too. But now I can tell you the story of those dolls too, if you want to later on.
Yeah.
But basically, instead of info dumping on everybody in my vicinity, I decided to start doing. First, it was the podcast. I was on the Riff Radio Network. I was the Haunted Tales from the Old Rocking Chair host.
Oh, very cool.
And basically what that was is I would take stories that I would find on Reddit, or people would tell me stories. I would go back to them, get their permission to tell their story. Then basically I'd record the story as a narration, put background music, sound effects to it, do about 10 stories for an hour and post it. But after doing that for quite a while, doing a podcast once a week, it kind of burnt me out. So I had to step aside. So then I moved over to my YouTube channel. And now I just do individual hyper focus videos about specific topics that interest me. No rhyme or reason. Like I said, it's usually paranormal, ghost stories. I've done a couple of the West Virginia ghost stories. The Greenbrier Ghost is really interesting. The Screaming Jenny story from Harper's Ferry. I had to think. I've done haunted locations. Like I said, cryptids, anything weird. I did the what was the country he was supposedly from? But I called it was the guy from nowhere. He just showed up at an airport and he had a passport to a country that didn't exist.
Oh,
Totally.
that's crazy.
And he vanished and nobody knows what happened to him, which that was an interesting story. So if it's weird or wacky and there's enough information that I can get a story and make an actual like engrossing story, because I do it in a narrative format to where I tell a story. And then I go through and explain like basically the story, the folklore story, beginning to end. I like to discuss the more modern hauntings or things that are happening if it's a location. And then I'll go through the reasons why that could happen. And I believe that I'm what I say I'm a skeptical believer because I always try to look at logic first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of annoy people in investigations because I'm like, well, did you check? Is there a backdraft? Is there a wind? I actually, one of my ghost hunting tools is a pinwheel. And people think I'm crazy because I walk around with a pinwheel. But if the pinwheel will spin, there's enough of a draft for things to move. Including dust and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm a little crazy woman with toys, but there's a reason behind it.
I mean, I'm a crazy woman with toys too, so
that makes three of us.
And I also have a 2-year diploma in electronics, so I kind of understand how equipment works. I built my own SLS camera from scratch.
That's cool.
And I kind of understand how currents and like different energy, because that's the thing I get kind of frustrated in the paranormal community because there's certain terms that are thrown around. I talked about this at the Orion Effect podcast, that people throw around the word energy a lot. There's energy. Well, what energy are you discussing? Because there's heat energy, there's wind energy, there's static electricity, there's electromagnetism, there's, of course, EVP, electrostatic electricity. And when people say, oh, you could feel the energy, what do you mean? Explain to me the energy that you're researching. And then there's no, in my opinion, we're all kind of just willy-nilly doing our own thing. And there's not enough of us communicating with each other the results, because people are in it a lot of times for fame. And they want to be popular, and they want to be the it person.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty. That's one of my guilty pleasures. I love watching like all the ghost hunter shows. I love it.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
And it doesn't make it real.
Exactly. And they play up a lot of things for shock value. And I get that. But I wish we could go back to more of a scientific mentality where we're documenting specific data points, because we're never going to get anywhere in this field. And this is my opinion. Opinions are like buttholes. Everyone's got one. What you do with yours is your business. That's my philosophy. But my opinion is if we can get back to the science, when you talk about science, the biggest thing is data points. People don't document their data enough. They go into an investigation. They're like, oh, we got an EVP. Okay. But what else? When you had that EVP, what else was going on?
Yes.
Like physically in the room. Was there a temperature drop there? And people don't document these things. And it's cool because you have this experience to talk about, but you don't have, besides maybe an EVP that somebody manipulated so they can hear it better, you don't have the data, the actual data points that you could plot to prove it in a scientific way. And I wish we would just go back to that instead of the sensationalism.
Right.
But
So
The thing that
I
gets under my
actually-
so go ahead. No, you
Uh,
first.
go ahead.
ADHD, ADHD.
You first.
Well, I was just going to say that I actually have a friend who is, I guess, the owner and founder of FBI Unsolved. And she is actually in the Paranormal Hall of Fame because she used forensic science to do investigations. And it was really cool because I actually got to film with her on the set of Repossessed, which you can see on Hulu. And she was there with a devil worshiper chair from like a satanic church. And she had brought her luminol with her, and she was spraying like everybody's stuff with the luminol and finding all kinds of blood all over it. It was crazy.
Wow.
Huh.
Now, when you were saying devil, were they a devil worshiper or a Satanist? Because there's a huge difference.
They were the chair came from a satanic church that did like blood rituals and things.
Okay.
So
Because there's a misconception, because there's a Satan worshiper who, worships Lucifer, and they do like the black masses and stuff like that. And Alexander LaVey, he kind of sensationalized Satanism by taking some of the satanic worship, like black mass and stuff, and made it more of a public thing. But Satanists, like true Satanists, are believers in hedonism. They don't even believe in God and the devil or any of that stuff. They just believe that, we have our life to live, and basically, you do what you have to do to make that life what you want, regardless of the consequences to anybody else. It's a very hedonistic, self-serving belief system. But like I said, they don't even believe in Lucifer. So that's why I was asking, because sometimes when somebody says Satan worship, sometimes they get the Satanism and the Satan worship confused. I just wanted to
how can they
clarify
be
that.
Satanists if they don't believe in Satan?
Basically, the term Satan,
That would just make them hedonists, wouldn't it?
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But what they did is when the religion was created, they wanted something as far removed to Christianity as they could get.
Ah.
So they used the term Satanism to kind of turn off the Christian folks. You know what I mean? It was like as far against their belief system as they could get. It was almost like, let's choose something that's very blasphemous words. So the Christian would almost be afraid of them. They wanted that fear factor.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I asked. So with the chair, with the luminol, it was covered in blood. Now, and you said they used forensic science. Is that correct? Did they test the blood?
Yeah.
Was it human blood, animal blood?
I mean, we were literally filming on location. She didn't bring all that. She just brought the luminol with her to find the blood stains.
Oh, gotcha.
We weren't
Yep.
on like an investigation. We were filming a TV show.
Oh, and she just happened to have it, and then they
it was a haunted objects TV show. So everybody there had brought haunted objects. It's on Hulu. You can watch it. It's called Repossessed.
cool.
But
I'll have
like
to
there
check
were
it out.
but like that was the point of the show. Like we brought our stuff there, and the ghost hunter group that was doing the show were the ones that kind of investigated our stuff and found what was haunted. But
That's
behind the
interesting. I'll have to
scenes,
check that
when we
out.
were, I mean, it was one of those, we had to sit there for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. And the bad part was, like, once we actually went into film, it literally took 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And we
Wow.
were done. But we had to sit there for like 14 hours to film for 5 minutes. But that's when Carol was taking the luminol around, and she sprayed to show us the blood on that, and she sprayed Blaine Rowan, who is also going to be on our show in a couple months. I think he's due in September or October. But he had a haunted toy truck that she sprayed and found blood all over too.
Interesting.
Well, see, it would be interesting to find out, like, because I don't know. I would just find it interesting to find out like what type of blood it was.
Yeah.
That's just my curiosity at play. I'm like, was it human? Was it animal? Was it like chicken? Was it a goat? Like,
I
'cause
mean,
then
I
you can
would venture
kinda-
to say it was human, but I can't
given the
confirm
nature of the
that or
story, the
deny it.
object.
Yeah. You would think
But-
so.
But that's why I'm saying, like, I would just find it. It's my certain ADHD. Like, I'm one of those people. I asked 100 million questions because I'm trying to understand. So I don't.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm built different.
I
But
wish I
yeah,
could
like-
answer every question, but I can't. It's her stuff, not mine.
Oh, I could give you an
But-
answer. I don't know if it'll be right. I can give you an answer.
She is a mortician though, like her actual job. She's a mortician,
Oh, that's cool.
so
Oh, that's cool.
she was telling us all kinds of stories where she'd go on like late night body runs and things, and how she used to get pulled over by the cops and have to tell them that there's a body in the back.
Oh my gosh.
She's like, I'm probably one of the few people that can get pulled over by the cops with a body
have
in
a
the back
body
and
in the
not
trunk.
get arrested.
Well, that's it. And that's one interesting thing about the house that we live in now. Next door is a funeral parlor and a crematorium.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
there are times like you'll get up in the morning and you can smell the crematorium
Oh,
like next door.
Well, that's
So
always fun.
I've had some weird phenomenon since we've lived in this house because, you know, I think there's a lot of unsettled emotion that happens right next door.
Yeah.
And then the history of the house itself is kind of interesting. And
Keep it up there with you. I don't need it down here with me. We're sharing a state. You can keep all that out there and you're part of it.
well, yeah, I could tell you some stories. I've seen some weird stuff in my lifetime. Let me tell you, like,
Same.
and like I used to be a lot more open too. So I would see a lot more or feel a lot more. I don't necessarily see it, but I'm more or less, I'm one of those people that can kind of go into a space and I could tell. Like, I could tell.
Same.
I'm a little bit, I don't like to talk about it too much because when you talk about it, people assume like you're insane or
Yeah.
you've got a mental issue, but it's not that. It's like, I don't
Been
know.
there, done that.
You just have a sixth sense about a space. But, so yeah, well, and along the lines, like when I was a kid, like my my parents said I had a very active imagination and I would constantly talk to myself all the time. Like
Same
I
with
had a
mine.
lot. And I don't remember any of that. My first paranormal experience was actually a very sweet encounter. My grandfather, who moved right across the street from us, he had leukemia and he was in the hospital. I was 8 years old when this happened. And I was very close to my grandfather. He was the sweetest man. He was one of those people that he never raised his voice. So if he had to speak to you, it devastated me. There's one time he threatened to beat my butt if I didn't quit. I went home crying to my parents. I'm like, Granddad's gonna beat my butt. You know, I was devastated because he never spoke to. He was always very calm and gentle. He was a gentle man, and when he spoke, he had something important to say. He was just quiet as can be. He read his books, he smoked his cigars, and he bestowed wisdom. That's what the man did. But he was in the hospital and they had told us like he's going to pass soon. They didn't know when, but they knew that he was going to pass soon. So I was in bed. It was the middle of the night and I could smell cigar smoke in my bedroom. And it kind of woke me up because I'm like, nobody in my house smokes cigars. And I'm like, and at that point, because he was in the hospital, like my granddad didn't smoke cigars. He just like they wouldn't allow him, because of his leukemia. So I started to smell the smell of smoke in my room at first. And then, I kid you not, I was laying in bed, as kids do, in a little ball with my blankets. And you could see where the bed compressed down beside me. And I'm like, is this happening? Am I dreaming? But I wasn't scared. That was the thing. Like, you would think something like this would terrify an 8-year-old. But I knew somebody had sat on the bed, and then I felt somebody kiss my forehead. Like, literally, like somebody putting you to bed kind of thing. And then the bed rose back up and the smoke dissipated. And I burst into tears. I knew Granddad was gone. My mother, a couple of hours later, came into my room. I was already, disheveled because I was crying all night. And she was coming in to tell me my grandfather passed away. And when she walked in the room, I said, I already know. Granddad's gone. He's like, yeah. She's like, yeah, how do you know that? I said, he came and said goodbye. I knew he's gone. But that was like my first real, I would say, encounter. I mean, I had a couple things. We had a mirror in our living room that actually was, my dad got, because my parents lived in Chicago before they came to West Virginia, before I was born. But they bought this mirror. It was a decorative wooden mirror, and it was one of those old mirrors with the glass that came out. Like, the mirror was behind glass. You know what I mean? And every once in a while, and supposedly, according to my dad, it was bought at an estate sale from Al Capone's uncle. Well, a lot of times you would look in that mirror, and it was a huge mirror. You would look in that mirror, and you would see a man in a fedora and a jacket standing on the stairs. He would just stand there. You go turn around, gone. So growing up, like, I would see things, but my mom never saw anything. So she's like, oh, it's your imagination. You're letting, your imagination run away with you. But that's why I say, like, when people say, like, when did you get started in the paranormal? I've always been in the paranormal. The paranormal has found me.
Yeah.
I haven't searched it out. It has came to me. But yeah, so that's like my first couple of encounters growing up. And that's not counting growing up in Appalachian and hearing the old time
All those
tales.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't go in the woods at night. Don't yell somebody's name when you're out in the woods. If you hear something whistle, don't whistle back. If something knocks in the middle of the night on your window, you didn't hear it. Nothing happened.
Right.
So I was raised with all those stories too. So
Yeah.
I was created in a melting pot of folklore and the paranormal. I guess the best way to put it.
That's fantastic.
I actually a couple years ago, before me and my ex-husband split up, I bought a property out in Sissonville, and the previous tenant came to pick up something she had left in, like, the shed on the property. And it was funny because she pulled me aside before she left, and she was like, hey, I used to live here, blah, blah, blah. We really loved it here, but have you noticed anything weird or strange? And I'm like, no, not really. We hear coyotes once in a while, but that's about it. And she was like, well, I just want to tell you, you see that big rock over there? And at the time there was like, they dug a trench around the trailer. Why, we don't know. But
a moat.
Yeah, we had a moat.
Castle.
But there was also a giant, like, boulder of a rock in the backyard. And she told us it got there because Bigfoot threw it at them.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Did she see it?
She swears she did, but
well, the rock throwing thing is a phenomenon. Like, according to my research, the first documented encounter with an ape-like creature, is how they put it in the newspapers. Because
Mhm.
back then, like, nobody had heard of a Bigfoot. Like, Bigfoot wasn't a thing. I think it was like 1920s. It was a group
Mhm.
of people that were up in a cabin. They were hunting, and they came across these creatures close to a cliff. Because at first they were just kind of watching them, and the one guy got scared, ended up shooting one, and then they ran off. Later on, while they were still hunting on these cliffs, these there was a couple of them, but they were along the cliffside, and the one guy actually shot one and it fell over the cliff
Oh.
and disappeared. But by the time they got to the cliff to look over, they couldn't find a body. It was
Hmm.
gone. Now that night they had the most terrifying encounter, because it was like these creatures they refer to as large ape-like creatures basically terrorized them for an entire night, throwing rocks at their cabin. Um, the filling between, because you got to realize this is an old log cabin with like the filler in between. They were actually breaking down the filler and trying to reach through the logs at them. And at one point, one of these creatures was able to reach through the logs and grab an axe. He was trying to grab an axe through the wall. And they were able to get it away from them. But they had this whole overnight onslaught of these creatures trying to get to them in the cabin. When daylight happened, it was like they kind of gave up and wandered
Hmm.
off. And of course, the miners there, because what they were up there doing is prospecting. They were looking for rare minerals to make their fortune happen.
Mm.
And basically, in the morning, there was a break in the onslaught. They got their crap and they got out of there as fast as possible. Now, the men that were involved did not discuss this encounter because they didn't want people to think that they were crazy. And then finally, one man told the story when he was drinking one time. Then that guy went and told somebody that he knew, and it kind of got out of hand. Then the newspapers got a hold of it, and they actually interviewed the men, and it was published in the paper. Like, I covered that video too. It's called the incident at Ape Canyon. But that was one of the very few documented cases of later on what they would refer to as Bigfoot.
Is that why they call it Ape Canyon?
Hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And in California, they had another incident, and this is where part of the reason the term Bigfoot came to be was because in that area in California, they were logging, and the one guy thought people were just messing with him. About cussed. I didn't want to. I had to watch what I
It's okay.
said.
You can cuss. It's fine.
Um,
It's fine.
Yeah,
but
you can totally cuss on this show. We
It's
do it all
fine.
the time. I even drop F-bombs here and there.
well, that's what I was getting ready to do.
I've said the C word a few times, just saying.
But basically, they would have these gigantic drums that were like 50 to 100 pounds. And they would leave for the night, come back, and these drums would be moved around. And it would
Hmm.
be impossible for like one man to pick these drums up and move them around like they were or that like what was happening. And that what they would see is these big, huge, big footprints compressed in the soil around this
Hmm.
stuff. And then people started seeing them, and that's part of the reason. Another reason that we got the term Bigfoot was there was a couple of high chieftains that were larger in stature that they referred to as Bigfoot. So, like, that was their name. They were like Chief Bigfoot. So part of it was they took that name, and then also because the impressions were big feet, of course. And that's where we got the term Bigfoot, because that's what was the evidence they could find for the newspapers at the time, that they were seeing big footprints. So they referred to them as big feet.
And the rest is history.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
So
don't
there's-
doubt the existence of Bigfoot. I just don't necessarily believe that she was somebody that saw Bigfoot. I mean, they were known for being troublemakers and paranoid schizophrenics. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's the sad part. Like, it's trying to ascertain whether something is
What's
a
real?
real encounter or whether somebody is suffering from some sort of mental illness. And that could be very difficult to, because I don't want to discount anybody's experience,
Right.
because a lot of times, especially even if it's mental illness, they believe it happened.
Right.
Now, if I could find evidence to support that, that's one thing. If I can't, it's just a story. But I'm not going to like discount them if they believe that they've had an encounter.
Right. Well, then you're like invalidating their experience, whether or not
Exactly.
it's real or not. It's you can't invalidate somebody else's experience just because you don't believe it.
Right. And
Because
that's
then
what
you also cross into what if it really is what happened? You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
we don't know everything.
Right. And we
Well-
don't know enough about the brain to understand if certain mental illnesses could possibly enhance somebody's ability to have an experience.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, another thing about them was that another reason I don't necessarily believe that that happened is because of the paranoid schizophrenia. They
Mhm.
set up booby traps all around the house and all over the property. I mean, Evan got caught in like 15 of them and nearly
Wow.
got decapitated a couple times. So I don't believe that they had all those traps set up and none of them got. I mean, almost every inch of the backyard was full of booby traps where they said that this thing came from. So if none of the traps were like messed with or you know what I mean, there's no way that thing walked and threw things from miles away.
Right. Right. 30 feet, maybe
Because it
miles
was
away. No.
it was literally 40 acres of booty. It was literally 40 acres of booby traps, man. 40 acres.
Oh my gosh.
There's no way. There's
What?
no way. Anything.
Were you like were you in the
we
mountains or
even had to
something?
watch letting the dogs out. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
not
it
really.
could've just
I
been
mean,
I was gonna say it could have been a falling rock if you were like in the mountains.
Right.
yeah,
That happens all the time in the
that's what I
mountains.
was going to say it was. I mean, it's a high rain area, it's a high snow area. It's
Yeah.
literally built into the side of a mountain. So, I would venture to say it was a rock slide more than a Bigfoot slide.
The mountain threw it at you. Or them.
Some mountain came to get you.
It's the mountain's fault.
The
But,
mountain said, the tribe has spoken.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
are
but
the weakest
playing
link.
devil's
Goodbye.
but playing devil's advocate on that, people have been trying to catch a Bigfoot for, over a
100 years.
century.
Yeah.
So they're able to evade traps and not be seen. We don't
That's a good point.
understand.
That's a good point.
And what's really interesting about here I get on here to talk paranormal and we're talking about Bigfoot,
That's
ADHD.
fine.
Um,
Talk about whatever you want.
But what's really interesting to me is if you take a map of like the 411 incidents of people that just vanish and you overlay it with the known cave system in Appalachia, they almost match.
Hmm.
So it's like, could these creatures use the cave systems to be able to get around and are able to like grab people and pull them into this subterranean area and not be seen?
Well, then it makes you wonder how many and how big that community is and exactly what happens in those caves. And is there like, how do they
Do they
connect?
have a society? Or,
Is there a world
we
within
just,
our, under our world, basically?
yeah, because we just don't know enough about them.
Right.
And the thing that I find the most interesting about the Bigfoot phenomena is that it's not regional. It's a worldwide thing. If you go to different parts of the world, each country has their own version of a ape-like large monstrous creature. Now, they can differ because the Yeti, of course, is white and it's acclimated to that environment for camouflage. But each location, it doesn't matter where you go, they have some sort of Bigfoot-like thing that people see in the woods, especially the deep woods. And being from Appalachia, like there are things back there. There are places people aren't supposed to be in Appalachia.
I'm sure.
And and especially the Appalachian Trail. People disappear on there all the time. And, a lot of it is human because there's just people that do bad things and
Yep.
see somebody that's an easy target and that they're vulnerable.
Right.
And then there's also the phenomenon in Appalachia that spawned many, many movies, which is the wild man phenomenon. Like, people talk about these humans are human-like creatures covered in hair, which we know that there is, there's a specific medical condition where people grow hair all over their body. Werewolf syndrome.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
People call it.
Lycanthropy.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another term for it. But it's, could that be part of the phenomenon? Because there are people that escape to the mountains and live out their entire existence as a wild person. And if they ever propagate, you could have a scenario where it's like the beans, or was it the beans that were the inbred family that killed like thousands of people?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So the forests of Appalachia is a scary place if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And what
Anybody else wonder why my happy ass never leaves the house?
Look, I would love to go and just like spend a weekend in like a cabin in Appalachia just to see it. But I'm not leaving. Not in the daylight.
You wouldn't go on a hike with me?
In the daylight, sure, let's go. But at night,
No
Can I
moonlit
catch an
walks?
Uber?
no, thank you.
I'll take an Uber to Appalachia.
Yeah, it's there's I actually
Give
saw
me
a
a
video on
segue
social
on the
media
trail.
once. Right. This guy was like, he's a British guy and he's out there and he said something about being out in Appalachia. And I actually commented and I was like, look, if you hear your name, no, you didn't. Like,
Are you talking about Josh from England?
yes.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
I
love
watched
him
his
so
stuff
much.
too. I'm like, bro, of all the places
Yeah,
to explore in the United States, the
that's not.
Appalachian Mountains is probably not the first one you want.
No, I mean,
jump
obviously
into.
he survived, but like, maybe don't go there if you don't know what you're doing.
Right. Well,
'Cause
he
they're
was in
scary.
an Airbnb and like
Yeah,
it was
safe enough.
Appalachia, but it wasn't deep Appalachia because
Yeah,
there's a difference.
yeah.
There are places in West Virginia that they're called the hollers.
Mhm.
That there are people that have lived back there generation after generation, and they don't welcome outsiders.
I actually have
Before
a friend
you
whose family like that.
hit that road to go into that holler, that entire neighborhood knows you're coming.
Yeah,
And if you pull into that holler, as they say, and you're not invited, they will let you know that you're not invited. They will stand on their porches with their guns and let you know to turn around
you need to go.
and leave because you're
Yeah.
not welcome. So
Yeah.
like
I mean,
there
in
are
that situation, though, I totally understand because outsiders at that capacity, they just bring nothing but trouble.
right.
Like, you don't need to be there. There's no reason for you.
Hmm.
But yeah,
You
no,
can't even rent a house in that neighborhood unless they allow it.
Hmm.
yeah,
It's the same thing with a lot of places with jobs and stuff too. Like some of these families have been in these towns for generations, like generation after generation. So sometimes it's the basis of what your last name is,
yeah,
unfortunately. But
yeah.
Appalachia is a very interesting place because it's a melting pot of cultures. Because you have the Native American culture, which is deeply ingrained. You have a lot of
Mhm.
Irish immigrants who bring on their own folklore and philosophies. And then we have German immigrants and Italian immigrants. It's a very like melting pot of people that form Appalachian culture. I mean, if you go into, because you live more southern West Virginia, they even have their own language. Some of the old people, like, unless you know what they're talking about, there's certain phrases that they use that you'll be like,
What are you
They
talking about?
also have a habit of naming things these long ass words, but then when you go to say them, they only pronounce 5 letters in the entire word.
mhm.
Like
Or it's
canal is spelled Kanawha, but they pronounce it canal.
that's funny.
Hurricane is pronounced Hurricane.
Hurricane. And then up here close to us, we have a place, it's spelled like Rio Grande, Rio, but everyone around here calls it Rio. Up in Rio.
That's funny.
Yeah. People need a passport to come down here.
Right? It's a different culture. But I'm thankful being raised here because I was raised around folklore and listening to people tell stories about experiences they've had. My dad had his own experience. He's actually, his story is in a book. It's UFOs in West Virginia or something like that. It was Bob Teets was the author, and he's in there, and it's all my father's encounter. And I was a accidental illustrator for that book. I was like 12 years old, and my dad was telling the story to Bob in our little porch area. And Dad asked me to kind of he would describe it, and I just kind of sketched it, on a piece of paper. And Bob took it, and I thought they were going to take my sketch and draw another sketch from what I wrote. But they actually have my sketch in his book.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is kind of funny because I was like 10, 12 years old. So, it's a kid drawing, but it was like, that's my little name to fame, even though it's not labeled as an illustrator credit or anything. Because like I said, I was a kid.
That's so funny.
It's just funny.
That's cool though. I mean, you get to be a part of it without actually intending to be a part of it.
Right. And I was blessed enough to have parents that weren't, they were Christian, but they were not what I would deem overly religious. And so as a kid, they gave me the freedom to explore. I went to all my churches in the community. I tried Presbyterian, Methodist. I went to, and then for a while I was even Southern Baptist. Good Lord, have mercy. But the Southern Baptist, I didn't have a warning about that. A friend,
aren't they the ones that do the snake revivals?
Yeah, well, they do the speaking in tongues, and they kind of fall out convulsively.
Yeah,
I did not get a warning about what Southern Baptist. My mom was raised Southern Baptist, by the way. She knew I was going to a Southern Baptist church with my friend, and she never gave me a warning. I was terrified. I thought the lady was dying, and I couldn't figure out why nobody was helping her. It freaked me out. I was like 16, and then they're doing their because they had a band, and everyone's brother and sister, and that part was cool as a kid. But then whenever they started doing the sermon and the hallelujahs, and then the lady in the back starts talking and she's not making sense, I'm like, what is going on? And then the next thing you know, the lady beside me falls on the floor and convulsing, and they throw a blanket over her, and I'm like, what
so dramatic.
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on? Because I looked at my friend, I said, are they going to help her? And he started laughing, and I'm like, is she okay? And he's like, that's normal. And I'm like, that is not normal. People
I mean, I was gonna say, did he even understand that that doesn't happen in a lot of churches? That's the only type of church that happens.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because he came from divorced parents, but he was living with his father because he got into a little bit of trouble.
That happens.
And his father and stepmother were very religious. They went to church 3 times a week.
Oh, wow.
They went to Southern Baptist church. So he wanted company.
I don't blame him.
That's hilarious, though.
That's
hilarious. When you picture seeing this,
Yeah.
it's hilarious. But to hear it described, it sounds like a horror movie.
In the moment, it scared me. And then we went to this church that his mother was going to, which was another this one was really backwards country because it didn't have running water. It had a room for women to breastfeed, but it was one of these churches that they didn't believe in contraception. So there was a lot of kids in the congregation.
Yeah.
But which is fine. What you believe is what you believe.
Yeah.
But they were snake handlers.
Oh.
Luckily, the one time that I went to that church, they weren't handling snakes, because I'm telling you, I would have made an exit into the wall.
Bye. as quickly as possible.
Right.
Like,
If
bye.
there is not a door, I would have physically made one. Like, but luckily they didn't do that. But that was an interesting experience
That
because
freaks me out. But the
that
snakes and
church, like we drove and drove and drove, and then we went to dirt roads, and then we drove on the dirt road for a while, and then finally we got to this church at the end, and there was nothing around us. And I was
oh
like,
wow.
what is this? Like, so I've had some interesting experiences. Like I've also like I was a Wiccan for 16 years. I actually attended the Greenbrier um, pagan convention with uh, the founders of like modern day Wicca, the Frosts.
That's really
I
cool.
met Yvonne Frost. Her husband unfortunately passed away, Gavin. But I met her and her daughter, and I went there for like 3 years in a row with my husband at the time. But yeah, so I kind of have a background in different religions, and that's probably what ultimately made me. I was a parapsychologist before I got a degree because I've always been the one curious about what other people believe and
I
what
was
their
gonna
experiences
say, I feel like that lays the foundation for exactly what you're doing now.
are.
So, like unknowingly, like you're like building those like steps that get you to where you were aiming to go without even knowing it.
Right. It that's why I said like this kind of stuff found me.
Yeah.
Where are
And
you studying?
where am I studying? It's an online school. I can send you a link to it. It's from a church, the humanitarian church. I don't know what I did with my degree because we moved and I haven't hung it up. It's somewhere.
It's around here somewhere.
Huh? Yeah.
It's
It's a
around here
piece of
somewhere.
paper. I
a
did
little bit
work
important, though.
months for it.
You
It'll
know.
show up. It'll be all right. But yeah, I'm in the
I'm the
process
same way
right
with
now
mine.
working on my master's degree. And once I get my master's degree, then I have to do my PhD
That's
doctorate
really cool.
thing. I
That's
got to
really
figure out
cool.
what I'm going to do for that. But yeah, and they're good people at the school. Like if you have any issues, you can call them, and it's very educational. The guy that created the church and the school, he was a former Jehovah Witness.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah, so he comes from an interesting background,
Yeah.
and he wanted to create something where everybody's welcome with a certain ethical philosophy
hmm
about open-mindedness about people's differences and beliefs.
Does it cost the same as the regular college would, or is it cheaper?
No, it's cheaper, and you can do it based on your financial need. They do have scholarships,
Oh, cool.
but you pay per class,
Okay.
and there's no time limit to it. So you can take your time and really dive into the subject if you like. And he provides a lot of additional like ebooks and videos and stuff that's not necessarily part of the curriculum, but it's more of a expanding on your studies on your own time if you want to about a subject. Hold on one second.
It's actually really cool that he kind of like you have like the guideline to go on, but you can kind of get as deep as you want to in order to like study and fully know it. I think that's really interesting.
Right. And he
Yeah,
is very,
I might look into it.
Yeah.
yeah, and he's very like he answers an email personally. Like he handles his stuff personally. So
That's really
um
unheard of. That is really unheard of.
it's called the IMHS Metaphysics Institute is the name of the school. I wanted to make sure I said it right because it's a mouthful.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
But it's a good program. Like I'm
Definitely send me
thoroughly
the
enjoying
link.
it. Okay. I
Yeah.
definitely will.
That's really cool.
Let me do
Yeah.
that because my ADHD, if I don't do it now, I will forget. And then you'll be like, hey, what about that link? And I'll be like, what link? What are you talking about?
Welcome to the
I'll forget
club.
we
We
even
have
had the
jackets.
conversation.
Right? Well, there you go. I sent you the link.
We would have jackets, but I forgot to order them. So
Right. Her ADHD kicked in too.
yeah.
What I had? What?
Jackets. She said we
Jacket?
have welcome to the club. We have jackets, and I said, well, we would have had jackets, but I forget to order them.
when you said that if you don't do it now, you'll forget. That's exactly what the rest of us. That's why I said join the club. We have jackets, and she said, "Well, we would have had jackets, but I forgot to order them."
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I was doing something, so I have heard. So my ADHD, single-minded. Yeah, that's why I always have a notebook. Like if you ever
Oh,
see
same.
me, I always have a notebook because if I don't write it down, it doesn't exist.
I have like
And
700 notebooks, and they all have like one page filled out. So
but I always have a handy dandy notebook
yeah, mine's
and a
down there.
planner because I forget everything. And
I've been using notes on my phone because I forget to take my notebook with me.
the thing with the notes, I forget that there's even a notes app on my phone. And I will write a note and then I'll forget that that app exists and I will never look at it. Paper, I'll look at. But
I have it. I forget that I have it, but it's where I put my shopping list. So when I go shopping, I'm like, look at my phone. I know what I'm doing. And then I go into my look at my thing and I'm like, what are all these other things I have? And I like doctors listed to do, movies listed I want to watch. And I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why I write notes in my notebook, but then I also have a planner and I do the X Tiles
Mm-hmm.
app.
Mm-hmm.
That helps me like stay focused. And I try to look at things in an increment of like 3 months.
Yeah.
I do quarters because if I try to think too far it's too much. And then I break those quarters into months and then the months get broken into weeks.
Yeah.
And the weeks get broken into days. Now, with my specific spiciness, sometimes those things don't get done.
Yeah.
And I'll admit it. I have days. Yesterday was a prime example. I should have edited yesterday. And yesterday I vegetated. That was my that was what my body needed for that day. And I've
Oh, so you
learned
mean you're human?
yeah,
Who
I
knew?
learned over the years. That's why it's like I feel bad because I have some die-hard dedicated people on my channel and God love them. I
Mm-hmm.
love every one of them because I'll go a month without posting anything because and especially the winter time. The winter time,
Oh,
I
that's the
know
hardest.
from November till March, the beginning of March. Those are my chief times that I just struggle. I
They are the
struggle.
hardest times. Yeah.
Yeah. I struggle with everything when it comes to daily functioning, like going to appointments, doing anything
Mm-hmm.
constructive. It's just hard. And
Yeah.
thankfully the people that between the Facebook group, the 1,500 people almost on there now.
That's awesome.
I think we're up to 1,300 now, but we're
Nice.
closing in on 14. So it won't be that long before we have 1,500 people in that group. They're diehards. And then I have the group on my YouTube channel. And thank God for them because like they don't drop off. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't posted in a month. I feel horrible, but like they're still there. They're still hanging out.
A number of them probably also have ADHD, and they're probably just like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. It's that object permanence thing.
Yeah,
We'll
it's
see
like,
you when
oh
you get
yeah.
back."
They're
Yeah.
off
Well,
doing
they
other
know
things too.
eventually
They
I'll
forgot
do
they
it, but
subscribed.
Right.
it's
Right.
like light. But I've learned over the years to listen to my body and give my
Mm-hmm.
body what it needs. And sometimes trying to push creativity. And then like I've got other projects I'm trying to do because I want to write a fictional novel.
Oh, awesome.
That's kind of paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I
I've
did that once.
did you? I've always said I wanted to, so I'm finally working on that. Plus school, plus the YouTube channel. So that stuff keeps me busy. But I always go back to the paranormal and the weird.
Yeah.
That's why I always call my people the creepy little weirdos because we're all creepy and we're all weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I identify with that remark. Yeah, no, with the ADHD, I have 2 jobs and I do this and then I have the 2 kids, so I constantly am doing something. And everybody doesn't understand why I don't have any time to hang out. And I'm like, well, it's because I'm doing 700 other things. I got to
Right.
keep busy, and that stuff is consistent. Like, I got to be doing something. And if it weren't for Rebel, I honestly wouldn't even do this show because I would not be able to concentrate enough to do it.
Yeah, I've thought about doing another podcast like what you guys are doing,
Yeah.
where I'm just talking to people and stuff, but I like telling stories. That's part of
Yeah.
my passion. So it would have to incorporate some sort of storytelling aspect for me because I
Yeah.
like the creative because I try to add it when I tell a story, I try to emphasize the basically the envelopment of the story. I
Mhm.
want you to be in the story and be a part of the story and feel
Right.
like, you know, you're
Like it's you, like you're
yeah.
living it. Yeah.
Yeah, or we're around a campfire and I'm telling you a story.
Oh,
That's the vibe I'm really going for because I like telling stories.
you should do a summer series where you're actually in front of a fire. That would be kind
That's
of cool.
that's what I was thought because we have a property that once things get settled, we're going to be moving to the property, and
Oh, very cool.
it's out in the country. And there's these huge, wonderful, beautiful rock formations and just trees for miles. And we do a lot of campfires and stuff like that. And I said, I think I want to do a live with us sitting around the campfire and
Yeah,
me just telling them stories off the top of my head.
that would be
Like the
awesome.
Screaming Jenny or the Greenbrier Ghost or all the little stories I picked up throughout the years.
That would be really cool. And just to like have that like environment to really bring that to like people who wouldn't necessarily experience it in that way.
Mhm.
I think that would be really neat.
Yeah, that's kind of because you said I've got a creepy vibe. I'm weirdo. I'm a weirdo. I'm the town weirdo.
Oh my gosh. My
I
daughter.
prefer.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Nope. You first. I won't
You
forget.
first. I went first last time.
Oh, fine. What I was gonna say is welcome to ADHD. My daughter said her friends are afraid of me, and I was like, "Why are your friends afraid of me?" And she was like, "I don't know. They said you're scary." And I was like, "What are you talking?" I'm like the nicest person you'll ever meet. I was like, "What are you talking about, scary?" And I was like, "Do I give off a spooky vibe?" And she was like, "I think that is exactly what it is." She's like, "I think you give off a spooky vibe." And I was like, "Okay, then I get it. Like that makes sense." Because like if you like, if we met in person, like I certainly don't give off scary or spooky, I think, but I could see how like a 12-year-old would see that.
Well, yeah, like my roommate, she bought these pictures, by the way.
I
They're
love that one. Like you can kind of see
this
it with
one.
the like purple. Yeah, like the purple. I love
It
that.
it's oh, I'm not gonna be able to reach. Watch.
Go gadget arms.
Yeah, she's
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so she looks dead from this angle, from
yeah.
what I'm seeing. That's awesome.
So yeah, she bought a whole like bunch of them. My favorite. See, now we're doing ADHD stuff. Whoopee, bam, stay. This is my favorite skeleton.
Oh my god, that's so cute. Oh,
It
Somebody
looks like
found
an
that
elevated
and
version of Zero from Nightmare Before
oh my god,
Christmas.
it
yeah,
does.
it's cute. Yeah, it's
That's
wonderful.
one.
And some of these are real. Some of my bones are real. Some of them, but yeah, like my roommate knows that I'm creepy, but she forgets all the time about these pictures that she bought, and she'll walk by to go to her room, and it scares her all the time because I see her because she'll go. She's like, I forgot about those stupid pictures again.
Dang
I'm
it, why'd
like,
I buy those?
but I love them because I just think they add to the vibe.
Yeah, I love that. We actually had a guest on who actually sells bones and stuff, which was kind of cool. Like human
Yes,
remains and things.
Mr. Chad Shepard, one of
Yeah.
our other favorite episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. Like, and he has a whole podcast too about it, which is neat. So
But
Speaking
yeah,
of
I collect
podcasts,
the
did
weird.
you ever tell us what the name of yours is?
Well, I don't have one currently. Like the one I did do was the Haunted Tales from the Old Rocking Chair. It was through the Riff Radio Network. All my old episodes are on my YouTube channel.
oh,
So
cool.
all the episodes I've did
That's pretty
with the
cool.
stories and stuff are on there. And then I started doing individual like hyper focus videos.
I
But
can't hyper focus long enough for that.
well, the thing is, the worst thing for me, believe it or not, I'm an extrovert, but the worst thing for me is recording.
Oh.
I will write scripts and I love the aspect, but actually sitting down and putting this on film freaks me out.
Well, you look great, so I don't know why
Thank
that would
you.
bother you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I appreciate it. Yeah, my daughter gets upset because we'll go out in public and everyone thinks I'm her sister. She's 26.
That's funny.
And there's been times where people have thought I was the younger sister, and that she's like, "That's my mother."
That's
Stop it.
ridiculous.
But we look a
No.
lot alike, so
Yeah, my daughter is a spitting image of me, so like she's 12, so I don't look like her sister yet. But like very similarly, I'm hoping that that's one day what I get because then I get to pick on her about it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun sometimes, especially if when I do everything. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Then, I think I look younger too. So we go out and they'll be like, "Oh, is this your younger sister?" And she gets so mad.
Oh,
She's like, "No, it's not Mystic. That's my mother." That's your mother?
that's weird. I don't believe you. Yeah.
Was she like a child when she had you? Like, how did that work? But Gen X, man, we don't age. I don't know what it
No.
is. We learn to laugh it off. We eat our emotions. I don't know. We just
I have a
don't.
brother who's Gen X and he doesn't age either. Go ahead, Rebel.
Mhm.
Oh, I was going to say, I don't even know what generation I am these days. I was
You're a
born in
millennial.
88, but am I? I was
Mhm.
born in 88, though.
Yeah.
You're a millennial.
You're a millennial.
I thought millennials were born in like 2000.
Nope.
That's Gen Alpha.
Nope. My daughter
Or
is tail
Zoomer.
end of Gen Alpha.
Zoomer. Those are Zoomers. Gen Z, and then it's Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Gen X. 79. Woohoo!
Because
My
we're
husband was born 79.
my daughter is the tail end of one because it's the longest one, which I think is actually I think that's Gen Z. I think she's the tail end of Gen Z, and my son, like they're 2.5 years apart, and then he's Gen Alpha. Like they
So-
just barely split.
What's the millennial time frame? Are you a millennial too?
Me, yeah,
Still?
I am. Yep.
Wasn't it 1980 till 2000?
Something like that. Is it
I
that,
don't
is it
know.
that long though? I don't know. Gen Z, I think, is the longest one. But like I said, my daughter is at the tail end because she was 2013, and I think it ends in like 2013, 2014, and then Gen Z starts.
Well, I love being Gen X because I lived a life before technology.
Well, you
And
know
then
what's
I had
funny
to
is
learn technology. So I'm
And-
not as dependent on technology as a lot of people.
right.
Well,
Well,
I was like
and
10 when it
same.
came out.
But you know what's funny is I actually had a computer my whole life because my dad's a computer engineer, so I've always had a computer,
Oh.
but I've never been someone who has depended on it. But it's funny because I'll talk to people now that are like my dad's age, and I'll start talking about like computer stuff, and I have friends who are my age who are like, "Oh, I've had a computer my whole life, and this is what I know," and I'm like, "Oh, do you remember DOS, like MS DOS?" And they're like, "I don't even know what that is. What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, well,
You
then
remember MySpace?
you don't know computers." Yeah.
I remember MySpace.
Ooh, I was probably the best Megan in the world, but that's just because that's the name I chose. It was a random thing that popped up and I chose it.
Yeah, I remember when MySpace was a thing. Like, it was unfortunate because MySpace was very versatile, where Facebook is very rigid. Because
Mhm.
MySpace, there was a lot more that you could do and
Yep.
a lot more customization, but you had to know how to write
Right,
code.
HTML. Yep.
You learned code to do MySpace. But
I learned how to write code just so I could do MySpace.
yeah,
Same.
me too.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and then Facebook come along, and it was easier for people that didn't know how to do that stuff to interact and connect with people all over the world. So people went with that, which was unfortunate, but it is what it is. The only things, like, I love Facebook, but I hate Facebook.
Yeah. Well, so it's like the iPhone. Like I love my iPhone. I love to be able to use it. However, it is much more user friendly than an Android. So like people who use Androids tend to be more like, they talk a lot about that, but like iPhone is made to be user friendly.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are, but I don't like how some of those security measures are absolutely beyond what they should be.
What do you mean? Like too much or too little?
Like when it comes to, like, if you do not remember your Apple username and password,
Mhm.
you are screwed. Like,
Yeah.
you can't, because I used to do like online tech
Oh, cool.
stuff for people for iPhones. So if you forget that, or God forbid you had an old account and then you bought a new
Oof.
phone and then you're trying to activate the new, it's a
And you can't.
nightmare. Like,
Yeah.
I like my Android. It's more user friendly for me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
and
That's what I mean. Like iPhone is like made for like remembering things, and it's easier to use, but it takes a lot. I think it takes a lot less thinking to use an iPhone than an Android. Personally, I don't know.
I think it's
I've
just
had
what
both,
you're
and I've had an
used
iPhone for so
to.
long. Yeah,
I think Android's more versatile. You can do more with it
I
than
actually agree with
Apple.
that. I love my iPhone, but I do agree with that.
And Apple is so integrated with itself
Yes.
that if you get an iPhone, you have to eventually get the iPad and the earbuds and the to actually like utilize the
So
Apple
I could
system.
use my whatever earbuds I wanted to, but like I don't know, it doesn't matter. But you're right there. Like it's like very Apple oriented. The only reason I got the iPhone is because there was something on Apple I needed, very loosely needed. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna get an iPhone then because it was up for an upgrade, and I was like, I'm just gonna get an iPhone and go that way, and I've had one ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people they go Apple, they don't go back. But I don't know. I'm gonna stick. It's my Gen X. Digging my heels in. Like
Yep.
I'm gonna
Kicking and
Once you
screaming.
go Apple, you never go backle.
That's right.
Yeah.
I can't switch to it. Apple is just so overpriced
It is
and
very
like
overpriced. Well, I'll never buy like one of their like MacBooks or whatever. I think that's ridiculous. I will stick with my regular PC because it's what I know. I will stick with my regular PC until like I die. Like there's no way I'm gonna get it
Same.
from Apple. And I'll think
and
about
I
it, but I'm
like
like, just no.
and Apple like when I'm talking about the security, it's great, but then also like it makes it hard if you like to do a lot of customization,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
such as jailbreaking. Like you can't
Mm-hmm.
jailbreak
You
an
can't
Apple
do
that
that. Nope.
but with a lot of Android products, if you know what you're doing, you can basically use it for whatever.
Yeah.
You just have to know how to jailbreak it right, not destroy it in the process. But
Not wipe it completely so you can never look at it again.
Do not make it a brick.
Yeah. It's pointless.
And on that note, we have come to the end of our show.
You have to join us for one of our chaotic conversations because we could talk about ADHD and that would be so much fun.
That conversation would never end.
Right.
We have an hour that we just know it has to be an hour.
We're already almost 10 minutes over this hour.
No.
It's ADHD tangents. We were talking about, tech and Bigfoot.
Yeah,
That's ADHD chaos in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for taking the time out.
No problem. I'll do it anytime.
Really,
this was a
we
blast.
really enjoyed you.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have you back on whenever we get back to filling chaotic conversations. That one's kind of been on the back burner recently because Thriving in Chaos took off and ran.
Yeah, we had a bunch of people that wanted to get scheduled, so our chaotic conversations, we got 2 in before we had to schedule our Thursdays for other people, which is
Thursdays, Sundays, Mondays. We are booked until like the middle of November on Saturdays.
Nice.
Yeah. And I still got people beating down the door to be on this show.
Sweet deal.
Yeah.
So I might. Hey, if you think I should do a podcast, drop it in the comments.
You should, yeah. Drop it in the comments.
Like, subscribe, share, comment.
Because all those wonderful, wonderful stories you have. So
thank you. I appreciate it. That's what I like doing.
Yeah.
And on that note, guys, we are out.
See ya.